and now he has not given me one little bit. Yes, my lord King Agamemnon has insulted me. He has taken my prize and keeps it. He has robbed me himself." His divine mother heard his sorrowful cry as she sat in the depths of the sea beside her ancient father. Quickly she shot up like a mist out of the grey sea and sat down beside her weeping son. She stroked him with her hand and said, "My child, why do you weep? What is your trouble? Tell me, don't hide it, then we shall both know." Achilles answered with a deep groan, "You know. Why should I talk when you know everything? We attacked Thebe, Aeetion's famous city. We sacked the place and carried off everything. The spoil was divided, and they chose for Agamemnon a beautiful girl, Chryseis. Chryses, the priest of Apollo Shootiphar, came to our camp with a heap of treasure to ransom his daughter. He carried a golden staff twined about with the sacred wreaths of Apollo Shootiphar, and made his prayer to the whole people, but especially to the two royal princes. All the people spoke good words and told them to respect the priest and accept the ransom. But my lord Agamemnon did not like it. He told him to be off, and rudely too. The old man went away very angry and prayed to Apollo. The god heard him, for he loved the man dearly. He shot us. The deadly shafts fell all over our camp. The people died in heaps. Our prophet knew what it meant and told us Shootifar's mind. I stood up at once and advised them to pacify the god, but the king fell in a rage and threatened me. And now he has made good his threat. They are sending a ship to Chryse with offerings for the god, and the heralds have just gone from my hut and taken away the girl Briseis, whom the people had given to me. Do help your son, if you can. Go to Olympus, pray to Zeus, if you have ever pleased him and served him by word or deed. How often have I heard you boasting to father at home, telling how you saved Cronian Thundercloud from violence and ruin, all by yourself, when there was a conspiracy in heaven. The other Olympians wanted to tie him up, Hera and Poseidon and Pallas Athena, but you came and saved him from that, by summoning old Hundred Hand, whom the gods call Briareus, but all men call Aegeon. He is stronger than his own father. Hundred Hand came in and sat down beside Zeus, triumphant. The blessed gods were frightened and did not tie him up. Remind him of that, mother. Fall down and clasp his knees. See if he will help the Trojans and drive the Achaeans back to their ships with slaughter. Let them enjoy their king. Let his gracious majesty King Agamemnon know his own delusion when he would not respect the best man of all." Then Thetis answered as the tears ran down her cheeks, "Oh, my poor child, why did I ever bring you up for such a dreadful fate? Why could you not have stayed behind? Why could you not have been spared tears and tribulation? Since your life is but a minute, no long day indeed. But now you have both a speedy doom and sorrow beyond all men. Indeed, it was a cruel fate you were born for. Very well, I will tell your story to Zeus Thunderer. I will go myself to snowy Olympus and see if I can persuade him. Be sure now to stay beside your ships, and be as angry as you like, but keep clear of battle altogether. For Zeus went yesterday to the ocean stream on a visit to the pious Ethiopians for a feast, and all the other gods with him. But he will be back in 12 days, and then I will go at once to the brazen halls and make my prayer. I think I can persuade him." And there she left him, brooding over the loss of his beautiful Briseis, whom they had torn from him against his will. But Odysseus came safely to Chryse with his holy offerings. They entered the deep harbor and furled the sails and stowed them below. Quickly they lowered the mast out into the crutch and rowed the ship to her moorings, where they dropped the anchor stones and made fast the hawsers. Then they landed and carried out the offerings for Apollo shoot afar. Chryseis landed also, and Odysseus led her to the altar and gave her into her father's arms with these words, "Chryseis, my lord Agamemnon has sent me to bring your daughter back, with a holy offering for Phoebus on behalf of the Danaans, that we may propitiate the Lord who has lately sent mourning and trouble upon the people." He gave her into her father's arms, and he received his daughter with joy. The men quickly set the holy offerings around the altar, then washed their hands and took up the barley grains. Chryseis lifted up his hands and prayed aloud, "Hear me, silver bow, thou who dost bestride Chryse and holy Scylla, thou who art the mighty lord of Tenedos. Verily thou hast heard my prayer and done me honor and smitten hard the Achaean people. Grant me now again this boon. Even now save the Danaans from this dire pestilence." So he prayed, and Phoebus Apollo heard his prayer. And when they all had prayed and cast the barley grains, they first drew back the heads and killed and flayed, carved out the thigh slices and rolled them between pieces of fat, and laid more raw flesh upon them. Then the old priest burned them upon sticks of wood, and poured sparkling wine over, while the young men held their five-pronged forks ready by his side. After the thigh pieces were burnt and the inner parts were divided, they chopped up the rest and ran splits through the meat, roasted all properly, and drew it off. This work done, they prepared their meal and enjoyed it, and no one lacked a fair share. When they had all had enough, the lads filled the bowls to the brim and served the wine to all after spilling the sacred drops. So all day long the young men of Achaea appeased the god with sweet music, singing the healer's chant, a hymn to the far worker, and his heart was glad to hear. When the sun set and darkness came, they lay down to rest beside their moorings. But as soon as dawn showed her rosy fingers through the mist, at once they rose and sailed for their own camp. Apollo far-worker sent them a following breeze. They lifted the mast and spread the white sails. The wind filled the great sail. The purple wave swished and poppled against the stem. The ship ran free on her way over the waters. At last they arrived at their camp and drew the ship ashore high on the sands, and set up the long line of dog shores. Then all scattered among the huts and the ships. But Achilles brooded still over his anger and did not move from his vessels. He never went to the meeting place, never to the battlefield, but wore out his heart where he was, although he longed for war and battle. When the 12th day dawned, the gods returned to Olympus in a body led by Zeus. Thetis did not forget her son's request, but she came out of the sea, and early in the morning she climbed to Olympus in the highest heavens. She found all-seeing Cronades sitting apart from the rest on the topmost peak of craggy Olympus. There she knelt before him, and threw her left arm about his knees, catching his chin with the right hand as she made her prayer. "O Father Zeus, if ever I have served you by word or deed, grant me this boon. Give honor to my son. He of all others is to die an early death, but now see how my lord Agamemnon has insulted him. He has taken his prize and keeps it. He has robbed my son himself. Satisfy my son, Zeus Olympian most wise. Let the Trojans prevail until the Achaean nation shall satisfy my son and magnify him with honor." Zeus, cloud-gatherer, did not answer, but long sat silent. And Thetis How she clasped his knees, how she clung fast to him, and cried out once more, "Say yes now, and promise me faithfully. Or else say no, for you have nothing to fear. Show me that you care less for me than for any god in heaven." Zeus answered in great vexation, "Bother it all! You'll set me curry-worrying with Hera and make her scold me again. She is always at me as it is, before them all, and says I help the Trojans to win. You just go away again now, and don't let Hera see. I will manage to do what you want. Look here, I will bow my head to you that you may believe me. That is my sure and certain sign here among us. When I bow my head, my word can never be recalled, and never deceive, and never fail." As he spoke, Cronion bowed his black brows. The Lord's ambrosial locks swung forward from his immortal head, and high Olympus quaked. So they had their talk and parted. Thetis dived from radiant Olympus into the deep sea, and Zeus entered his own hall. All the gods rose up from their seats to receive their father. Not one of them dared to sit still, but all rose up to greet him. So he took his seat upon his throne. But Hera had seen. She knew there had been a confabulation, and a visit from silver-foot Thetis, the daughter of the old man of the sea. She lost no time in scolding at Zeus Cronion. "Who is it this time?" she began. "Who has been confabulating with you now, you deceiver? You always like to go behind my back and make secret plans and lay down the law. You never would tell me a word of your notions if you could help it." The father of men and gods made answer, "My dear Hera, do not expect to know everything I say. You must not expect as much as that, although you are my wife. Whatever is proper for you to hear, you shall be the first to hear before any in heaven or earth. But when I choose to consider things by myself, do not be inquisitive and ask questions about everything." Queen Hera said at once, opening her fine eyes, "Oh, you dreadful creature! What a thing to say! I, inquisitive? I ask you questions? I never did such a thing in my life. I just leave you alone and you decide whatever you choose. But I am dreadfully afraid this time. I can't put it out of my mind that you may be cajoled by Silverfoot Thetis, that daughter of the old man of the sea. Early this morning she was kneeling and clasping your knees. I suppose you bowed your head and promised faithfully to honor Achilles and kill crowds on the battlefield." Zeus Cloud-Gatherer answered, "You are a strange creature, always supposing, always watching me. But you shall gain nothing by it. You will only make me dislike you more, and that will only be more unpleasant for you. If this is as you say, it must be my pleasure. Silence, please, and sit down, and do what I tell you. All the gods in Olympus will not help you if I come near and lay my heavy hands upon you." This frightened the queen. She sat down in silence and took herself in hand. But the other gods were disturbed, and Hephaestus, the master craftsman, was the first to speak. He took his mother's side and said, "Bother it all, it is really too bad if you two quarrel like this about mortals and make a brawl among the gods. What's the pleasure in good fare with bad manners everywhere? My advice to my mother is this, and she knows it is good. Give way to dear Father Zeus, and don't let Father scold any more and spoil our breakfast. What if Olympian Flash Lightning choose to knock us out of our seats? He is much stronger than we are. Come now, speak him fair and gentle. Olympian will be kind in 1 minute." Then he jumped up and put a double cup in her hand, saying, "Be patient, mother dear, bear it patiently, although it hurts. I love you, and I don't want to see you beaten before my eyes. I shall not be able to help you then, however sorry I am, for Olympian is hard to tackle. Once before I tried to help you, and he caught me by the leg and threw me from the threshold of heaven. All day long I fell, and at sunset down I came in Lemnos, with very little breath left in my body. There I fell, and the Sintians looked after me." Queen Hera smiled at this, and smiling, received the cup from her son's hand. Then he drew sweet nectar from the bowl and carried it to all the gods, moving round rightways. Laughter unquenchable rose among the blessed gods when they saw Hephaestus' butler puffing about the hall. So they feasted all day until sunset, and there was no lack, plenty to eat and drink, a splendid harp with Apollo to play it, and the Muses singing turn by turn in their lovely voices. But when the bright light of the sun sank down, they went each to his room for sleep, for the famous Crookshank Hephaestus had built them each a chamber by his clever skill. And Zeus Olympian Flash-Lightning went to his own bed, where he used to sleep sound when slumber came upon him. Into that bed he climbed and slept, with Queen Hera by his side. Book 2. How a dream came with a message from Zeus, and how the Achaeans debated in their camp the names and numbers of the two hosts. All others, both gods and men, slept the whole night long. But Zeus could not sleep, for he was pondering how he could destroy crowds of men on the battlefield and cover Achilles with glory. It seemed to be the best plan to send a bad dream to King Agamemnon, so he called one, and spoke plainly and to the point. "Away, bad dream, go to the Achaean camp, enter the hut of King Agamemnon, and tell him exactly what I say. Bid him arm the Achaeans with all haste, for now he may take the city of Troy. The Olympians are no longer divided. Hera has now bent them all by her entreaties, and troubles hang over the Trojans." Away went the dream. Quickly he flew to the camp, and made his way to King Agamemnon's hut, where he found the king deep in blissful sleep. The dream leaned over his head in the shape of Nestor and Iliades, whom Agamemnon respected most of all the elders, and spoke in these words. "You are asleep, O son of Atreus, the lord of many horses. No mastermind ought to sleep the whole night long when his cares are so many and nations are in his charge. Now hear me quickly. I am a messenger from Zeus, who far away cares for you and pities you. He bids you arm the Achaeans with all haste, for now you may take the city of Troy. The Olympians are no longer divided, since Hera has bent them all by her prayers, and troubles hang over the Trojans from Zeus. Be sure to keep this in your memory, and forget not when honey-hearted sleep shall leave you." Then the dream departed and left him there, believing what was destined not to be done. For he thought he would take Priam's town on that day, foolish man. And he knew not what Zeus meant to do, for Zeus was yet to bring more sorrow and groaning upon Trojans and Danaans both, before the war should end. The king awoke with the divine voice echoing about him. He sat upright, and slipped into his fine soft tunic, and threw a wide cloak about him. Next he laced his boots, and slung the silver-studded sword over his shoulders. Then he took up the scepter of his fathers, which had been handed down from generation to generation, and holding this, he made his way among the ships. By this time dawn had come to high Olympus, proclaiming to Zeus and the gods that it was light. And the king commanded his heralds to use their good lungs and summon the people to meeting. They cried their summons, and the people came quickly. But first the king held a council of the elders beside the ship of Nestor, and when these were gathered, he proposed a clever plan. "Listen, friends," he said. "A dream from heaven appeared to me last night. He was exactly like Nestor in looks and voice, and he stood by my head and said, 'You are asleep, son of Atreus, the lord of many horses. No mastermind ought to sleep the whole night long when he has so many cares and nations are in his charge. Now hear me quickly. I am a messenger from Zeus, who far away cares for you and pities you. He bids you arm the Achaeans with all haste, for now you may take the city of Troy. The Olympians are no longer divided, since Hera has bent them all by her entreaties, and troubles hang over the Trojans from Zeus. Be sure to keep this in your memory.' This said, he flew away, and I awoke. Well then, see if we can get the men under arms. But first I will try their temper as usual. I will tell them to ship and go home. You must post yourselves here and there and urge them not to go." Then King Nestor rose and said frankly, "My friends, my lords and princes of our nation, if any other had told of this vision, we might think it false and take no notice. But now he has seen it who claims the highest place among us. Come then, and see if we can get the men under arms." He led the way out, and the princes followed obedient. Meanwhile the people came crowding on. They were like a great swarm of buzzing bees which come on and on out of a cave and hover in clusters over the flowers of spring. Here they fly and there they fly, no end to them. So the men swarmed out of their huts and ships over the deep sand and marched in throngs to the place of meeting. Among them God's messenger Rumor blazed abroad and quickened their steps. The place was all confusion. The earth groaned under them as they sat down, and there was a great din. 9 ushers tried to keep order with loud shouts to stop their noise and make them listen to their princes. At last they were seated and arranged in rows, and the uproar ceased. Then King Agamemnon rose, holding the scepter which Hephaestus had made and given to Zeus Cronion, who gave it to Hermes, king's messenger. My lord Hermes gave it to Pelops, and Pelops to King Atreus. Then Atreus, dying, left it to Thyestes, and Thyestes left it to Agamemnon, the sign of his rule over the whole of Argos and many islands of the sea. On this scepter Agamemnon was leaning as he addressed the assembly. "My friends, my Danaan heroes, servants of Ares, Zeus Cronides has wholly deluded me, cruel god. First he bowed his head and promised that I should sack the walled castle of Ilion and return safe. But as it seems now, his will was to ruin and deceive. He bids me return inglorious to Argos after losing thousands of men.